That's my question. I would love to know what people in this room, how you define district propaganda. Because right now, to me, sometimes it feels like anything that's not like sports, us saying good job, X sports team, you won state, or school is closed for the weather. It feels like everything else might be propaganda to somebody. So, and I want us to feel like, I want people to receive reliable, accurate communication from HISD. So in the spirit of deeply trying to understand, Richard and I would like to understand, I don't know how many people are in here, 30-ish people's version of propaganda, so that as we build more information to go out, it resonates with more people. So I'll be quiet. I'm happy to take verbal answers or paper answers. We have paper. We have some paper and 3 pens. This is an audible I called, so I wasn't fully prepared, but I'll be quiet and I'm curious. Anybody want to start with the answer?
I'll start. I'll add a slide.
I'll pass up some paper.
I think it goes to the broader, a lot of the community dissatisfaction with what is going on in their schools and the things that their kids are coming home and telling them and the things that they are seeing. And instead of the district saying, there are challenges, there are rough rollouts of things, blah, 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 there's very little recognition of anything negative, which I don't think is realistic ever in a district of this size, particularly given a takeover, particularly given parent dissatisfaction with the teacher turnover and the principal turnover. I think those are 2 of the really big things for parents, because the teachers and principals that they know and love, and the reason they sent their kids to the schools, are dropping like flies. And then to see everything is wonderful and HIST is the best place in the world is the opposite of the lived experience of parents. And therefore, it hits really poorly. So I think that's, in a nutshell, where most parents are. And I know that the district doesn't like to look at things like social media, but on the social media of neighborhood pages, the number of people who are pulling their kids out of the district mid-year.
I'm gonna stop for a second.
Yeah.
You're giving me a theme. Can you be concrete? Like, propaganda is positive. Propaganda is not when the district admits a mistake. Because I think I deeply understand the theme, and that's a theme we need to address.
I mean, I personally, if I were in charge of all this, I would concentrate on great things that kids are doing. We have amazing kids, great things that are going on in schools. Like I just saw recently, I think it was the Sam Houston Mariachi went viral for something really cool. Yeah, I mean, like things like that are happy. I would tone down all the rest of it and do a reset, because it's just, so much of it is susceptible to, that's not happening at my school. That's not, you say that's happening, it's not happening at my school. That's not what my kids come home and tell me. I think the turnover is the biggest thing that bothers parents, and the cuts, budget cuts and things like that, but losing things that have brought parents to the district. But it doesn't matter a lot. You can say, well, there's this great, thing. I don't know how many people have said when an educator was featured, it feels forced, because I don't know anyone who's going to go in front of their employer and say anything bad on TV. I mean, whether it is or not, that's the assumption. Because if you had to go talk about, well, you're the communications person, but if you had to go talk about, I mean, you're not going to say, yeah, this is kind of a big mess. You know, it's just not. And so it feels like, I mean, there have been so many people that somebody's disparaged a particular educator, and I've seen other educators jump to their defense and say, no, they're, you know, I worked with this person, they're great. But it kind of doesn't matter. It's all of that stuff because of where we are.
So to, like, yeah, and I'd love to get some more opinions, but I think, like, what, if I'm, like, boiling this down, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be pedantic, but I'm really, like, what hits to you is anytime an educator says something positive about operations in the district or their experience in the district, that strikes as propaganda to you as an individual.
So I can distill this a little bit. So Amy is wordy and I am not. Is generally she does a great job of explaining in depth, and I tend to sum up a lot of how we think about things, because I'm with her on this. And a lot of it is the district telling me what I am seeing and experiencing with my children, with my own eyes, is not true. That is propaganda. 100%. Like, oh, our teachers are amazing. Really? Because I have a long-term sub. Like telling us teacher turnover does not matter, it does. Telling us it's okay, all of our principals left, and we're getting these people who are trying really hard to fill in those gaps, but they don't know what they're doing because they were a dance teacher a minute ago. Like, that feels like propaganda.
So that's clear. But what both of you are saying is clear to me. The thing that is hard from our seat trying to land this right is not every, like, it's still like HISD is hundreds of thousands of experiences.
But you're not validating what parents are feeling. You can validate and say there are good things going on. You can do both.
Yep, I'm with you. Okay.
Because I mean, that's parenting, quite
those
frankly.
two comments are super helpful. Let's hear some more.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking the question. I know that must be a hard question to ask, and to be open to hearing that, and I just want to acknowledge the vulnerability and the courage that it takes. And I am a little nervous about for an example, I think that there was a series of social media posts, and I want to be accurate, but that gave the results of some opinion surveys about the direction of the district. And so as an example, I don't doubt that you got that survey data back. I don't think that anybody is like falsifying information or something like that. But if I think they were surveys of principals, and something like 97% of principals were saying like the direction of the district is going in the right direction. And if I surveyed my students on like how great of a teacher is Miss Chapman, and like your name is attached to this and I'm getting it back, I would expect like similar kind of positive data, but I would just be skeptical about its validity, especially with some other data points. That doesn't mean that it's totally wrong. It's just something that I would take a second look at. I think connected, so that's a specific example.
Yeah, the principal survey data hit you like propaganda. I'm not.
That's a hard word to.
I mean, I'm not saying like that. That's how it. When you saw it, that's how it resonated. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Because like, and I'm not like I promised you. I appreciate that you said that. I asked the question. I want real answers. I want this as individual people's opinion, because I think that in here I understand that felt like propaganda to you, and that in and of itself, one post wasn't a complete story to you. That's super helpful feedback.
I think connected to, particularly the concerns about the messaging about like the teacher retention rate and the loss of principals, the message that we're only losing bad people, that people who have concerns are voicing them out of like a failure to care about kids enough, feels damaging. And I know that maybe administration is also feeling that way, that it's hard to assume goodwill when it's not given to you. But while I'm sure that there are people who have other motivations at heart, like nobody's making like this would be a strange hobby to have if you weren't like in it for the right reasons. And I hope that somehow our storytelling and our communication, our messaging can look for more common ground, because I don't think one side or the other has a monopoly on caring about kids the most or doing what's right.
Thanks for sharing that.
I'll take it after you, Teresa. Kind of my assessment as an observer of the whole process is, so, you know, like during the takeover felt like a hostile takeover to many community members and to many family members. And I feel like we're at a place in the community where even though there are people who don't like it, there is some level of acceptance almost that it's happened and it's here. And so the communication from the district is can be, and because I mean I can understand why, you know, when you had when there was nobody standing with you and you feel like you had to defend whatever, you're there. But now I think moving towards acceptance and this change management, having more empathy, and I like what Amy said, you can't bullshit us that everything's going well. And what we want to hear is that you recognize that there are things that are not going well. And that validation and that empathy is really important, because we are in a place where many feel like the ball's rolled so far down, it's going down this slope that it's not really stoppable unless some huge other change happens. And so, you know, maybe that's what it is by design. But as a communication, as a PR, kind of from a PR standpoint from the district, you know, I think letting people understand and know that, and doing a lot more listening, not just with formal listening sessions, but really, social media is the stuff that you see and what we see, and that does form, it is a way that people are influenced, and opinions are influenced. And so it can be a very strong way that you message that you are somewhat being influenced by us back, even though we don't have formal influence at the district level. So.
Maybe two more thoughts, and then if anybody, because I know we need to wrap, and if anybody wants to write me a note about what feels like propaganda to them or what would not feel like propaganda, the flip of that, positive stories about great things kids are doing, data not interpreted, whatever feels like not propaganda to you, that would be helpful for me to know. But I'll take two more comments if people have them. Eileen?
Okay, I'm going to jump off of what my two colleagues have just said. I think realistically, we're all acknowledging we're stuck in an adversarial spiral right now. That's what it feels like. That's how I've described it to friends. And it feels like what we need to do is change the tone and the culture to something that's got more humility on both sides. And I like what Teresa said about, we need to do a lot more listening. But we need sustainable change in this district. And we're not ever going to get to sustainability if we don't bring people along. And so we have to find a way to bring the community along with us. And right now, it's like we're doing it through Mortal Kombat. And that's just not sustainable for anyone, and it's not healthy for our kids, because we're seeing our kids starting to engage in the same sort of adversarial behaviors. And that's just, it's not constructive. And so I think that it's a tone and culture shift. And somebody has to take the first brave step in that direction. And so I think that's where I would go.
You said two, right? Two, yeah.
Well, I appreciate everybody's comments. It's hard for me to really see what is propaganda, especially when I focus in in an area where improvement is definitely needed. And I do appreciate the district forward-thinking approach, because a lot of families have left in fear. A lot of teachers have left, of course, and there's still a lot of misinformation, miscommunication that's out there a lot of people don't understand. I sit in this room with you all, and a lot of times you all are running circles around me because education is not where I've been. And so I know for my community, many people do not understand what's going on, and many of those families are stuck where they are. They cannot just go to private, charter, or anything like that. They have to accept the public school that's in their community. And so I appreciate you all saying something like, yeah, this is what's happening over here. This is the improvement that's made, including like what the Sunrise Center is doing, how that has made a difference for the community. So that's good. But yeah, acknowledge what we're dealing with for others as well, so that way we can find a solution to the problem. And I believe the word that I like, what Eileen alluded to, is collaboration. I don't know if you all realize it. The child is in the middle. You go to child support court, divorce court, you got two adults arguing. And it takes the judge to see that child sitting there with tears in their eyes and ask that child, what do they want? And we have to remember, our children will model the very behavior that we're doing. If we cannot come to amends and collaborate and think about what's in the best interest of those children, we're going to continue to deal with the problems we have with high discipline and everything. No, I don't want the media to be out there showing that we got a bunch of failed teachers, a bunch of failed students. We don't want to say that. We want to celebrate. We want to acknowledge our problem too, but we need to encourage the children. I believe in those kids. I believe in every last one of them. And I believe in our teachers too. But at the same time, as a realist, I know that we all need help in demonstrating this teaching to our kids, in hearing our parents, and including our parents and community. And I just hope that after tonight, we start having better communication on social media and start finding ways to collaborate our efforts. Because we all say that we have that child's best interest, just like a mother and father.
I think you're great. So I think, one of the things for me that just always resonates, that sometimes it's me, is I agree with everything, and keeping the child as the focus and collaboration and clarity, but sometimes, and I want to celebrate, the good things. I do. I want to celebrate the successes of all the children. I think those are the best social media posts that we put out there, but all the children. I'm not a big fan of the competitiveness of, NES beat non-NES. That really turns my stomach, because my kid gets impacted, my child gets impacted by that message. But when we, one of the things, when we talk about data points, if we could just be realistic. So the NAEP data, just, and Mrs. Board Manager Angela Flowers spoke on the fourth grade improvements. A professor from the University of Houston shut her down in 2 minutes because of the biases around some of that data. I mean, we have to be realistic about when we present data, what's behind it. The fact that the House administration was 1.5 years of that data. Miles' administration was 0.5. That in reality, we're kind of stagnant. Those are not bad things. We didn't go down, but let's be real, okay? Because it gets, people in this community see that stuff and they beat it down like this, and then they go, well, there they go again. They're just trying to pull the wool over our heads. And I don't think you are. I really think we're trying to show the successes so that we can get out of this takeover. But I also think we have to just be realistic that a lot of folks look at that data too, and they read it, I know better than I do, And we just have to interpret it a little bit more realistically and somehow in that capacity.
I think that I appreciate all those comments, and I really want to listen, and we want to do a better job in HISD communications. Richard and I are not HISD establishment. We haven't worked here for decades. We weren't hired by the TEA. I've been here for 8 months. He's been here for 10, 11. Like, we are trying to make it so families in HISD in this moment of time, in a takeover that nobody chose, get good information. It is also true that HISD, there was a state intervention in HISD because we were not serving all students well as a district. HISD worked for some kids and not for all kids. That is a fact. That is why we are here in this moment in time. And so we have to be able to hold those truths together, and we have to be able to communicate about both of those realities without people saying that somebody else's truth is false or propaganda. And this is a nuanced job. And so we launched HISD Now recently, which I'm sure because of the music and the colors, it will feel like propaganda to some people. We need people to actually watch it, click on it, but the information, we write the script every day based on what's going on in the district, and it is to give people real information. This school was in a lockdown. This school had something good happen. This team won something. The NAEP data is out. Yes, the NAEP data was a year and a half of Millard House and a year of Mike. That is one way to look at it. You could also look at the Millard House administration ended with 221 DNF schools in 1 year. The Miles administration moved that a lot, and the kids took the NAEP about 6 weeks after they took the STAR. So you can have this conversation in both directions. What I want to celebrate is HISD did not decline when almost every major urban did in the country. And that is something, regardless of where we are, we should feel good about as a city and as a district. And we have to, even if we're frustrated about things, we have to figure out how to celebrate together and how to get better together. And so I want us to be more vulnerable, but when the district is vulnerable, if the reaction to that is, look at that, they're admitting their mistakes, they were wrong the whole time, these people can't get anything right, that is also very hard for us to navigate from a communication standpoint. So we are learning every day. We're going to try new things. Our communication will resonate with 50% of people, and 50% of people will hate it, and we're going to try again the next day, and we'll probably be having some version of this conversation, but hopefully we have different data points to learn from a month from now, 2 months from now.